I'm excited to know that you're considering using some of this for your film because, I watched all the films that you've shared with me, and
Mhm.
and I know that you will come from this narrative film background, and then it seems like you've been kind of transitioning into more of like this expanded documentary kind of format. So we can talk more about that. That's my interpretation. Doesn't mean that
Yeah.
that's what you identify
No,
with.
no, that's fine. I'm still trying to figure that out too. I was saying last night I've been watching Internal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind kind of on a loop, and I
Mm.
was just like, I can't wait. Like I have a couple of ideas.
Welcome to a new episode of Where to From Here. It is 2023. This is our first episode of the new year. It's also our 20th episode. This is Jes Reyes, and I'm the host. Today, we have a wonderful conversation with Atlas O. Phoenix, a multi-award winning director, writer, producer, and editor who creates films that examine the dark and light places of their humanity. These films are personal, powerful, and uninhibited. Additionally, they were an actor and performer for the legendary Dykes Do Drag from 2017 to 2020 and the Naked Eye series. A Minneapolis-based artist, Atlas is currently working on a film called Beautiful Boi. I am fortunate to have been able to share a conversation talking in great lengths with Atlas about the various stages of the film and where they are going with this film. Their most recent film is called Ordinary. It's a personal experimental essay, a patchwork of intersecting identities. Ordinary weaves together multiple storylines to explore the purpose of identifiers and their meaning. Atlas questions in this film whether identifiers truly identify anyone. There are a lot of questions in Atlas's work, as well as truth-telling. I hope that you enjoy this conversation, learn more about Atlas. I was a newbie to Atlas's work coming into this conversation and have really enjoyed getting to know them in this way and the conversation we shared. Enjoy. I'm so excited that, that we're in this space together. I know I've mentioned via email that I've known of your work, and I hadn't yet felt connected yet. And I hadn't been able to watch your films yet. So I feel like, oh, I wish I would have seen your work prior to the last couple of months. But I also feel like a sense of a new discovery. I don't know if you get really excited when you start to see new work from an artist who is established. And it's just really inspiring. So I've just been excited to see your work. Let's get started.
Sure.
We already have gotten started, but let's do some questions.
Okay.
And I'm an open book too. So I just made the assumption that you're an open book, but just
Pretty much.
I'm an open book.
Okay.
And if you have any questions while we're going through this, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk about Moonplay or myself as an artist or what have you.
Okay.
But this is all about you. And I'm just wondering if you could talk more about your background in film.
Sure.
Who are you and when did you first start working in this area of art?
I mean, it's a goofy story that it's not so much goofy. It's just, here's the story. I was an only child. And so I would get home around like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I'd have to have my chores and dinner on the table by 5:30 because my parents got off work at 5. And so I had got home from school and I was bored, and I was so bored that I started looking at a telephone books, like the yellow pages and the white pages. And I think this was the yellow pages. And at the beginning of the yellow pages, there was these shorter pages that had a listing of all of the arenas with, graphs of like Wright State Stadium, and just all these other like government offices and whatnot, and the colleges that were listed in our town in Dayton, Ohio. And I thought to myself, I was like 16 or whatever, and I was like, you're so bored, just go take a nap and then we can get up and do chores. This is ridiculous. You're reading the telephone book. Kids at school find out about this. I put the telephone back and I went and took a nap. And I woke up giggling and I was just like, you're so in love with Prince. I bet that school doesn't actually exist. And so I go to my school library and there's a huge book that has all the colleges in the country listed in it. It's a super thick book. And so I'm going through, I get to the M's, I get to the MIs, I get to the MINs, and I find Minneapolis College of Art and Design, the school that was in my dream.
Whoa.
And so, yes. And so I was like, what? And so I looked at the degrees they offered, and one of them was film video. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to this school in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm going to study film and video. I'm going to become a filmmaker. And at the time, I think I just referred to myself as like a director or something. I wasn't really sure. I just knew I was going to make films. And, you know, I'd always loved films, and my mom made me, you know, pay attention to films. You know, like back then we had cable, but there was a lot of really cool, like old films from like the 20s and 30s and whatnot, and silent films. And so we'd watch like Matinee at the Bijou. We'd watch all of the like Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy and Harold Lloyd. I think it's Harold Lloyd or Harold Floyd, and then we'd watch the stuff on PBS, and then I'd watch all of the Alfred Hitchcocks and then all of the Stanley Kubricks. And by that time, I started going to the theater by myself around that age of 14 or 15, and so I would just go to the theater by myself. And one day really changed my life. And I can't remember if it was the dream that happened before or after this incident, but I was at a theater and I don't even remember the movie I was going to see, but there was a black and white trailer of this, you know, skinny black guy with like one of those biking baseball caps, little flip things that said Brooklyn on it, and these big ass glasses. And he had a pack of tube socks, like white tube socks. He's like, I'm selling these tube socks. I got to finish my film. You got to come check it out. You got to check it out. It's called She's Gotta Have It. She's Gotta Have It. It'll be in your theater soon. And I was like, what? And what I saw was that, you know, I didn't realize it for the first time. But as I was becoming familiar with racism outside of my home, because I wasn't taught that inside my home to be against someone because of their color or whatever, it was like, well, do you get along with them? And it was like, well, yeah, you know, and that was never even a question to even ask. I just, you know, hung out with people I got along with. And so this was the first time I actually realized, oh, this individual is Black. Like, that means I can make films because I'm also Black. And so that kind of like, that synergy between the telephone book, The Dream, and seeing Spike Lee's trailer for She's Gotta Have It, it just kind of formed this like pyramid of like me and like what I was going to be doing with my future. And, you know, I was making films. I made my first short film, which is really a feature at this point. It's 46 minutes long. And I made that with the help of a Jerome Media Arts grant that I got in 1999. And so I shot the film, I think it was late 1999 or 2000. I think it was 2000 that I shot it. And I went a different approach with it. I didn't have a lot of money, and I was very intrigued by something called Dogma 95. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yeah.
But it's just for reference, it's four Dutch filmmakers created this, and it was a way to strip away the slick Hollywood process of making films and use digital cameras. And they had the 10 vows of chastity, and it was, you know, like you had to shoot with natural light. You couldn't move the furniture in any of the scenes. If you wanted music, it had to be playing during the scene. Costumes had to be brought, like actors bring their own wardrobe, do their own makeup, and just a whole bunch of other really cool things. And I thought, oh, I can do this. You know, my friend Deidre, who's an executive producer on Beautiful Boi, I've known Deidre for almost 30 years now. And she was like, yeah, sure, you can use my house. And their son, who also transitioned and is transmasc now, I used to babysit Atticus when he was really little. And so I put Atticus, his friend, and Deidre up in a hotel, and I took over their house for the weekend. And then I created Cord, which I finally decided to put on my website under my pay plans that I have, where people can pay $2, $4, or $11 a month to support my work. And so I put that up, and that was the first film. And I'm actually thinking about going back and remastering the film and cleaning up the audio. And the image is, it's degraded in the sense that it was shot on mini DV on a Canon Noctura 50 or 30. And I recorded all the sound. I think I had a mic that was recording all the sound into the camera. And my person who was helping me out, there's one point where we took a break, and then when he went to plug the mic back into the camera, he accidentally plugged it into another connection. And so the sound is there, but it just sounds different than.
Yeah.
So I made that, and then I showed it at Intermediate Arts for the first time, I think in 2021 and in like the winter. And I forgot how I got that space. I don't even know if I had to rent it. I think I just had to show up.
Yeah.
And then it was also, I'd submitted it to Women's in the Director's Chair when that was a thing, the turn of the century, and they rejected my film. So I ended up getting into Women in the Rejected Chair, which was upheld and run by Lisa Ganser, another local filmmaker. I don't know if Lisa is still in town, but I had shown Lisa my film, and it's called Cord. And Lisa was like, "Oh my God!" I sat down, I watched it, and I went to the bathroom, came back down. And I think she saw it 2 more times after that, and so she reached out and was like, "I would love to have you be in this thing." And so and it's funny. I was putting all my journals together for a dear friend of mine to read, and I came across like the flyer for the Women's in the Rejected Chair, and I wrote a little note, and I said, "Hey, isn't this funny? Like this year, they're doing a retrospective of all the women in the director's chair at the Walker, and this was in 2020, and they asked me if I could cut together a 4-minute trailer of Little Men to submit it because they saw the whole film, but they didn't have space to show the 24-minute film. So they said, "Can you cut together like a little 4-minute thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so it was weird, like, something like 18 years later, it came back full circle. But, when I created Cord, I actually ended up taking a break. I had some like mental health crisis that I needed to deal with, and I didn't come back, and I wasn't sure I was going to come back to filmmaking until 2017 when I sat down to pen the script for Little Men. And, I don't have children of my own, but I knew what it was like to be a child, and I knew what it was like to be an outsider. And both of these young boys are outsiders. And that's what brings them together, besides the fact that they live in the same building, and they're, fundamentally different people. And I had a joy writing that script. I will always say that Little Men made me a writer. I'd been working on a script of my own personal story, trying to create a narrative of my life, but it wasn't working out. But I'd been writing it for like 4 years, and I, didn't take screenwriting classes since like 93. And so I'm a self-taught filmmaker, self-taught screenwriter, self-taught producer, self-taught editor. And when I created Little Men, I wrote the screenplay, and on a whim, I applied for the Minnesota State Arts Board Artist Initiative Grant, which was like a $10,000 grant. And I had written the grant out, and then I ended up connecting with my friend and mentor, David Lawrence Grant, who connected me with Mary Ammon. And what was interesting was that Mary Ammon was my screenwriting teacher in 1993. And I got I think a B or something on the script I'd written at that time, which I would later develop and turn into Cord. And so I was kind of giving myself a hard time in my grant proposal about how I just totally messed up, and I just need this chance to get it right. And so when Mary read the script, because of our history, and we hadn't been in touch in years, decades even. And so she was just like, "You give yourself such a hard time. Like, I saw Cord. I thought it was good. And just to toot your horn and blah, blah, blah." And so I went back and completely redrafted it, and I got the grant. And that's how I was able to make my first film in 18 years.
Wow.
And that was Little Men. And Little Men has won something like 2 honorable mentions, 3 awards. It's traveled as far as the UK and Romania, as close as Minneapolis at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival. And my poster for it has more laurels than images. And and I'm kind of freaked out a little bit by it, every now and then. Like, I'd just be like, "Why does your poster have so many laurels?" "Well, you got nominated for like 6 things. Like, let's not talk about this. This is weird. Let's just do something else." So it was like, I was in a funny place looking at that poster, and I had not yet made Do I Qualify for Love as a film. I
Wow.
had made it as a monologue.
Mhm.
My friend Sally Barterman asked me to write a monologue for a show she was doing, a spoken word show that was called Don't You Want Me Baby.
Mhm.
And so I wrote this monologue, and it's, about a night my parents attacked me. And
Mhm.
it's also about someone that I was in love with, am in love with at the time. And so I created this piece, and then I submitted it to the Naked Eye for their last Naked Eye show, for 20% theaters in the last Naked Eye show, which was, I think, the second or third to the last show they would produce. And it got in,
Mm.
and then the pandemic hit, and so we were supposed to perform it on stage,
Yeah.
and the pandemic hit. And so about 6 months later, Claire Avidable reached out and said, hey, can you all video record your pieces? And we're just going to stream them online on YouTube, and people can like watch them there. And that's how Do I Qualify for Love became a film. And I knew immediately, I was like, I don't know what anybody else is going to do, but I really want mine to stand out and to be on par with everyone else's and to be artistic.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I just want one single camera angle. I don't want any music. I'm just going to use my phone. I didn't have like a lavalier or anything. So it's naked sound on the phone. And I shot it. I thought I shot it in 4K. And it's just a ring light that lights the whole scene on the lowest setting. And the
Wow.
ring light is next to the phone.
Wow.
So, and so I just sat on the floor. And at that time, my apartment, I just moved in, and my apartment was very bare. And so I just sat on the floor, and I waited until I live across the street from a strip mall. So all this traffic and everything in Loring Park. And so I waited until it got quiet and everyone went home. And the interesting thing is, my friend and I had sustained a breakup in 2020, 6 months before I was to make this video. And the morning that I was going to make it, I woke up and I had two back-to-back really bad dreams about them. And it was like I was, going after them, and they were going through different buildings and houses and changing wigs and changing clothes and changing cars. And I was just running and running after them, and they were running and running away and driving away. And I ended up reaching out. I was doing dialectical behavioral therapy at the time. So I reached out to a good friend, and then I reached out to my therapist, who called me back. And then I decided just to stay in bed and just listen to sad music and just feel my feelings. And so by about 10:30 that night, when I went to record it, that's why it dances between a performance and an actual just retelling of what happened.
Yeah.
And so all of the real heavy emotion, especially when I referred to my friend in the film, is not a performance. It's of what happened early that morning. And so yeah, and then that went on to also get in the Minneapolis St. Paul International Film Festival. And I was privy to an email where I had reached out to the former person that was the head of the operations there, I think the director. And I had reached out to say something about the film, and she reached back. And then Craig Rice jumped in and was just like, is there a problem? Because I want this film in the festival.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, and I've known Craig since 1992.
Yeah.
So he's been my off again, on again mentor. And we actually got into dialogue last year. And I said, thank you so much for programming my films. He's like, absolutely, it was my pleasure. And I just submitted Ordinary. And so I'll see what happens if it gets in the festival in a couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited to find out if it does. And then it also went to the UK. I seem to do well in the UK with my films,
Mhm.
and then other places in the States. And so, yeah, that's got about 10 laurels for that film. And one of the film festivals I submitted to actually gave me a screening fee for it. And that was the first time I ever got paid.
Wow. Great.
So it was for $250. They paid me for it. And I was just like, whoa, wow, And then I was also showing it. I showed Little Man on the Walker website for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then I showed so many films in 3 years. Showed Do I Qualify for Love somewhere else locally. And then I was supposed to, was given an application to apply for a cabaret, to do a piece in a cabaret. And it was through Off Kilter Cabaret that was part of Off Leash Productions. And it's run by, I can't remember how to say Jennifer's last name, but it's like Jennifer Halstead and Paul. I can't remember Paul's last name. So sorry, but they husband and wife team that run Off Leash Productions, and they were creating this cabaret. And the focus of the cabaret was to focus on disabled artists creating work. And the theme was organ recital. So we had to pick an organ of ours and talk about its impact socially, personally, privately. And I thought, oh, skin, that's easy. You know, it was right on the heels of what happened with George Floyd and his brutal murder. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is something I can talk about, and I can address like a whole bunch of different things around skin color. And as a couple of months went by and I actually sat down to write it, a few weeks before I had to perform it, we had a 10-minute limit, and I was at 15, 20, so I had to keep, cutting away at it. And then I was just like, you need to talk about something more than the color of your skin. Like, really think about this. And so I talked about not only the racism that's given to me by both Black and white people for not being Black enough, or being too white. I also have, that fat phobia thing. And then I'm transitioning. So I'm getting I had top surgery. And then at the time I didn't at that time, but I was going to get it. And now I'm going to get bottom surgery later this year. And I was just like, your skin is being lifted from your arm to create a phallus. That's the thing, the skin and tissue. And then you're having your skin, sort of cut and then rearranged to make a flat chest. And then you're also, identified as homosexual. So you're having sex with people that may or may not be the same gender. And now that you're changing gender, it doesn't even matter what gender the person is. And it's all like skin contact. And so I just created this kind of like breadth of like aspects around skin. And then I got COVID the day before the show. And they asked me the night before, they said, hey, can you film it and turn it into us by like, 10 a.m. or whatever? And, I said, yeah, sure. And I was sick with COVID. So I was a little delusional. So I wrote out this 67 shot list, and I was like, okay, I'm going to wear my Phoenix wings, and I just have to wait for this backdrop to come from Amazon that I ordered. It was coming at 11 o'clock. And I was like, 11 p.m. And I was like, okay, we're make this happen. About 11:15, I got a notice from Amazon that it wasn't coming until the next day. And I was like, no, with COVID, you're not going to do 67 shots. Like, even if you weren't sick, you wouldn't do 67 shots in a day. And I was like, you're right. What do we do? And I was like, you shot all this footage for Beautiful Boi. Just use that footage. And so I cut a very rough edit for the show. No music, no transitions, just cut. And I recorded myself the night before, and I was very relaxed. I do medicinal cannabis for CPTSD and anxiety. And so I had done it that night and just kind of was relaxed. And then that's when the sense of humor that you can hear in Ordinary comes out, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, don't deliver this hard. We all know this. Just deliver this very softly with a sense of humor. And so that's what I did. And I knew I had something special when I finished the rough cut of it, because I was feeling all of these different things when I was watching it, even though it was watching me. And I was just like, this feels really good. And I'd given it to Paul and Jennifer, and they told me during the weekend that my piece was getting, I think, the heartiest applause of all the pieces, and that members of the audience went to talk to Paul and Jennifer, and they said that they loved the humanitarian approach that I took with the narration. And I said, okay, that's it. You've got to get this ready for Sundance. Like, Sundance had a open call for submissions for the film festival this year. And I had been in conversations with Andrew Peterson over at Film North, who used to be on the programming board for Sundance. He had looked at Do I Qualify for Love and Little Men the summer before. And he was just like, yeah, you need to kind of do these things if you wanted to get into Sundance. And so I said, hey, look at Ordinary and tell me what you think I need to do. He did. And he said, make it richer, like the color of it, like make it richer, and smooth out the sound, put some music on it, and then show it to me when you're done.
Yeah.
So I, got several grants between late 2021 and early 2022.
Mm.
And what happened? I got these grants to make Beautiful Boi.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the connect here, but I needed one of the grants. I needed to make a fundraising film for Beautiful Boi. And I said, this is it. This is your fundraising film. And one of the grants that I did get at the beginning of last year, this individual reached out to me to say, hey, congratulations on the grant. If you need music for anything, let me know. Like, your project sounds really interesting. And I said, okay. So he had sent me a piece of music, and I was half asleep when I listened to it. I said, oh, this is cool. This is cool. I was really trying to work with a Ukrainian artist, Lefsum, who has music on Patreon. And some of his music was it's the music that I used for the trailer for Beautiful Boi that's on my website.
Yeah.
And so I got better with COVID and started editing. And I was like, you need to talk to Simon. So I reached out to the individual whose name is Simon N. Spurall. And I said, hey, I listened to all of your music on SoundCloud. Would you like to work with me? And so we got together and we had coffee, and I was ready to pay Simon whatever he wanted. I was just going to find the money. I just needed to know how much it was.
Yeah.
And he's like, kind of struggling a little bit. And he's like, I know that my work has value, but I really like your project and I really want to help. And so we were walking out of the coffee shop, and I said, Simon, do you want to do this pro bono? And he's like, yes, I do. Let's do this,
Yeah, as long that's really what it came down to.
Yes, that's what it came down to. He didn't know how to offer.
Yeah.
Feeling like he wasn't showing value to himself. Sure. And I was like,
yeah.
That you have value, and I don't want to take you for granted, but I'm just going to ask you this direct question. And he was just like, it just burst out, and we ended up giving each other, that was the first time we ever met. And so he crafted this beautiful soundtrack for me. And then my friend Maida gifted me her song Get Loud, which is at the ending credits for Ordinary. And so I smoothed out Ordinary. I made the black and white richer. I put like transitions between everything. And I made some of the shots that were shaky. I just made them still shots and just zoomed in. And so all of the footage, except for the footage of me walking down the beach, is actually shot by me. And so I didn't have the ability to zoom in or pan in or, whatever. So I actually used Final Cut Pro, and I zoomed in a little bit and panned a little bit if I needed to, and that kind of thing. So there are all kinds of like editing tricks that I did to make it look like someone else shot it.
Yeah.
So
I have a question for you. Yeah. I'm learning so much about you and your films, and just sort of your process and all these opportunities that you've been able to experience over the years. And what I'm fascinated by is all of it, but I'm also curious about just, you wear a lot of hats as a filmmaker. It sounds like you are the writer, you are the editor, you're the director, you are producing. What am I missing? Do you do it all? Are you the person behind everything?
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think it's important.
It is important, like I had a staff, a whole crew of professionals that were working in the field every day with regular day rates. And I was giving everybody like $2 or $3 or $4 or $1,000 for the whole shoot. And the shoot for Little Men was like 6 days. And so it was just like paying people what I could afford to pay out of the grants. And then, also getting donations from generous folks who didn't know me from Adam. Some of these people didn't know me, but they heard about me from another friend who donated. And all of a sudden I had amassed, almost with GoFundMe being over $8,000 and about 2,000 or 3,000 private donations, plus another like 2,000 or 3,000 of my own money. I was able to create Little Men, but I had to teach myself how to use Final Cut Pro because I hadn't really used it before, and I was struggling with it. So I was just like, you need to learn how to do this. And I had audio files for my sound guy, video from my DP, and then my script, and then like the storyboards that I had. Another person who was also trans identified created this beautiful storyboard for us. So I was trying to work off of everything. And I ended up watching a tutorial, which was about an hour and a half long from the UK about how to use Final Cut Pro. And that's how I taught myself to like adjust it for what I needed for my purposes. And so, yeah, I had to learn it all from scratch. And now I use it regularly with my projects. And I just finished a gig for a spy thriller that's not mine, but it was someone else's. And I was fresh off of editing Ordinary, so I felt confident to take the job on, and I was able to make something with it. And then he has to take it to like a colorist and a sound designer because I just ran out of time to do it. And I was just like, you need to take this to someone whose skill level is higher than mine to do what you need. Like it's okay for my work, but I know that you need something for yours. And so yeah, it's a writer, director, producer, editor. Sometimes I act.
Performance. Yeah, you're a performer. I mean, I just feel like there's such a rawness to what I've seen so far. With Do I Qualify for Love? There, I mean, there's a level of performance, but you also talk about how it's really in the moment. It's almost confessional, just sitting down in front of that camera and just being in that moment. And then I know that you've done some other performance-based work, stage-based work, right? Monologues. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's really funny how I met my friend because it started with meeting someone else years earlier on OkCupid, and they had a partner already. So they said, "Hey, let's be friends. Let's go hang out." And so we hung out, which led me to meeting some of their friends and getting reconnected with an old acquaintance who said, "Hey, you should come to Girl Scout with us," which got me connected to my friend Kitten S, which got me connected to my friend Patricia, because Kitten S set me and Patricia up on a blind date. And then on the blind date, I'd actually met Patricia the night before at Dykes Do Drag when I went to go see the show. And I had wakened the day of our date. And I was like, oh, God, wouldn't it be kind of cool if they had a bunch of cats and like there was a cat lady who was singing Adore to her cats. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cute. My cat was laying next to me at the time, and unfortunately passed away a few months later. But when I met Patricia, we got to talking and everything, and it was a good time. And I said, oh, I have an idea. Excuse me for saying this, but I do have an idea that maybe Dykes Do Drag would be interested in exploring. And so I shared the idea with Patricia. And then we had some kind of weirdness that happened. They had just gotten out of a serious relationship, and I wanted to be friends, and they weren't really, really ready to take on new friends. And so like we kind of had this falling out. And then my friend who got me in connection with all these people that got me to Patricia, said, oh, just reach out to Patricia. Patricia is a whole graduate. So just reach out to Patricia and tell her that you're interested in like talking to them about the idea. And so I did reach out to Patricia. Patricia was totally cool and got me in contact with Nader, who talked to me and had me pitch the idea to Nader. And then Nader said, oh, you have to be in the show. And I was like, oh no. It's like, if you want me, I don't need credit. I just think it would be funny to see it. Oh no, you have to be in the show, and you have to come. You have to be in the show. And that's how I got into Dykes Do Drag. I played the tomboy kitty who ends up having sex with one of the feline kitties on stage, like the femi kitties on stage. And Nader is a cat woman who's in her robe with her hair all over the place and is lip syncing Princess Adore. And so that's my introduction into that. And also that's my friend too. And so because they were in Dykes Do Drag, and so it was like this weird kind of family energy thing.
That's great.
Dykes Do Drag, and then I was in there from 2017 until the finale in 2020. And my friend and I had actually made a piece called Raspberry DeLorean. My friend was Marty McFly, and I was Doc Brown, and we had the and everything, and the big wig and everything. And I was saying the words to Raspberry Beret, but as I was recollecting a memory, we had turned a vibrator into a time machine. And then my friend was like, so Doc, when was the last time you had a cutie? And then I just sort of like, great Scott, I remember. And then I go into like, I was working part-time at a Five and Dime, and then I would get to Raspberry Beret and I'd be like, oh, it's Raspberry Beret. And the audience would laugh, and it was just so much fun. And then we got again for the finale. And so yeah, that was a great piece. I had a lot of fun. And I also did a dry run of Do I Qualify for Love as a monologue, that particular show too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've done that. I've been on stage for The Naked Eye in 2018. And the reason I decided to audition for that was because I was in Dykes Do Drag, and I decided, oh, I'll just try it. I probably won't get a part, but I'll just try it anyway because my other friends were going, and they were excellent performers who were also in Dykes Do Drag, and they actually didn't get a part, but I got a part as a solo piece, and then that kind of catapulted like the acting performing thing, and so yeah, so I do that whenever I'm asked to, whenever I have an opportunity to apply, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I think about how with performance and also video essay, you have the your most recent works have been they're video essays or film essays, and often folks who are exploring in that genre, it's a form of like a self cinema. Like the first person cinema. And I think about how often that can play a sense of performance because you might be narrating, or the filmmaker may be narrating, and might be telling the story of something that's happened to that filmmaker. It's not always that situation, but I'm seeing that in your work, and I'm curious to know more about sort of what that process has been like for you, to sort of shift into this essay form and placing yourself within those films.
I think it came out of necessity because I had to turn Do I Qualify for Love into a film. And it was doing well at festivals, and I also shared it with friends of mine, and a lot of the feedback, like I have a couple of folders in my gallery, and one folder is Do I Qualify for Love with all the screenshots of things people have said about it, and the other one is Ordinary. And when I saw the feedback coming back for Do I Qualify for Love, and I had decided to transition in late November, and I just needed to talk to my doctor the following February, which I did. I had come out to about 35 close friends the day after Valentine's Day, 2021. And then I decided to do some research for what's it like for people my age. And because surgery leaves keloids for people that have darker skin, I was like, what can I find about top surgery, bottom surgery for people my age and for people with my skin tone? And I couldn't find anything. I think I found like a 4-minute interview that had something like 3 or 4 different trans mask folks. They were all African American, and it was the interview. The article was called, "Are we leaving?" Something like, "Are we leaving Black trans mask folks behind?" or something like that. Are they invisible? And then that was pretty much it. And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so I sat on it for a minute, and I was just like, "You're an award-winning filmmaker, and you're transitioning. Why don't you just make your own film and give it to the masses?" So that people like you can find something at no matter what age they're at, whether they're 10 or they're, 70, they have this reference point.
Yeah.
If they decide to transition at 70, if they decide to transition at 10, they have something they can look at.
Yeah.
And then it became this thing, and I still hadn't figured out what the movie was going to be about. I had to work through that in 2021 and 2022. And I took a course with Sundance. Sundance Institute offered a documentary lab and a documentary course called Developing Your Story. And it was great. I realized about halfway through the class, I was like, oh, I'm a little further along than other folks because I've actually made a body of work where some folks, they'd made work for other people, or they'd never made work for themselves before, or made work, period, or were just messing around a little bit. And so I was paying attention in class and jotting down the notes that I needed, and then started to understand like my story, started to develop my story. And I actually talked to my instructor, David Finch, and I said, hey, would you like to see my other films? And I was just loving his sensibility around filmmaking in general and his passion for documentaries. And so I thought, well, maybe he'll like, do I qualify for love? Or he can tell me like what I should do differently in future projects. And long story short, he is the consulting producer for Beautiful Boi. He loved my work, all of it. He saw Little Men, Do I Qualify for Love, and Ordinary, and just loved it. And he said, you're a great filmmaker with something to say, and it's what you have to say is very powerful. And having someone who has 30 years in the business as a documentarian, as award-winning documentarian filmmaker, who's teaching this class at Sundance, say that I'm a great filmmaker, I had to literally sit down and take that in. We were on a Zoom call, and we talked a little bit before we started the interview about disassociating on some things when it gets like kind of like a lot, and it's just like I was like, you cannot disassociate. I refuse to have you disassociate. You need to actually listen to what this person is saying. Even if the compliment is hard for you to take, you need to listen to this, and I kind of just decided to fall into it. And when I started talking to my other executive producers and some close friends, they were like, yeah, that's what we've been trying to tell you. And I was just like, okay, but like, okay. And I'm not saying that this person's word is more valuable than yours. It just seems like, oh, I'm actually hearing it.
Yeah.
Again, for the upteenth time, and for my instructor. And, David was like, I was told by the Institute that I would have people approach me to ask me if, I wanted to be working on the projects. And he's like, I'm more than happy to work on your project because you have a vision and you have a goal of what you want to do. And so you're already prepared. You just need, like, we talked about whether he would be the producer, but since he's in Canada, he couldn't produce it. He's like, you need like an advisor or someone like a consultant, like to bounce ideas off, because you already know what you're doing. Yeah. And so we decided to have him come on as a consulting producer. I actually need to reach out to him this week. But yeah, so I introduced him to my other executive producers and my other producers, Sinai, who helped me produce Little Men. And some of the executive producers were also execs for Little Men as well. And so I have my team together, and these are people that I love dearly, who love me dearly, and we've known each other for, in some cases, decades. And so so that's how I have my team now. And I needed to take a kind of a break from, I think, October to December, because I was just like so inundated with so much. And this took some time to reflect on Beautiful Boi and my body of work that I've created. And I tweaked my website and put Cord on the website, and then created a kind of a paywall, but really just a patron plan without going on Patreon, and just putting my own like Patreon on my website. And then creating that. And so far I have 3 subscribers. And so that's great. I do have regular subscribers that can subscribe to the website to get information about it periodically, but I have paid subscribers now. And so
what is your website address?
Beautiful Boi. Boi is BOI, so beautifulboi.com.
Okay, great. So folks who are listening can go check that out.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. You can see trailers of the work too, to see whether you want to support the work.
How long, so Beautiful Boi, do you see that it's going to be a feature length film? How long? Yeah, for sure.
I feel like around the 90-minute mark. And I record footage nearly every day. And so I also see a miniseries with that as well. Wow. And so I have enough to make like 15-minute episodes, 15 to 30-minute episodes. Yeah. They'll have enough to make a well-rounded 90-minute feature.
Yeah, I think also with marketing the film, having those different variations of how it can be presented is really rich and valuable. I feel like you could market it in so many different ways. That's really cool.
Thank you.
I'm hearing also different ways of resources that you've tapped into to make your work. And they sound, the resources that you've used, it sounds like crowdfunding, it sounds like grant funding, some personal finances. Can you talk a bit more about the resources that you've used as a filmmaker to get your work out there, to get it made?
To get it made. I remember like applying for the original grant that was the $10,000 grant for Little Men. And, I was like, I don't want to show them Cord, because I don't feel like it's my strongest piece. So all I had was the first 12 pages of the 40-page screenplay. And I said, well, we'll just see what happens. And, I knew it was competitive. I had applied many years before and was like, don't worry about it if you don't get it. And then I, dressed it up after I talked to Mary Almond. And then I let it go. And I said, like about when you're going to hear. So just check in around that time. And then I completed the script. It took another 4 months to finish the script. And then I just, kind of let it go. And then I was thinking about the grant, which happens with every grant that I end up getting. I think, it's okay if you don't get the grant. Mm-hmm. And then about within 15 to 20 minutes later, I will hear that I got the grant. And it's like that every single time. And it's really interesting. It's like when you like kind of like let go and let God or whoever your higher source is, if you have one, that's kind of what I was able to do. And I got an email that was like, congratulations. And it was highlighted. And I was just like, what happened? And so I had to read the email a bunch of different times because I just, again, disassociating from success and being what happened? What? And then I like that night, I was like, you have to get up at 6:00 every morning if you're going to get this thing produced and ready, to shoot over Easter weekend or over Easter break or whatever. And I needed to have it over Easter break because I needed 10-year-olds to be away from school.
Oh, yes.
And stuff like that. But like, so I, when I got the grant, I said, you have a grant, so this is actually good because now you can do the crowdfunding with GoFundMe and you have this grant as backup to say, hey, look, I've got $10,000. I need another $10,000. And once, I put it up there, I got about 1,500 within the first 2 weeks and then kind of slowed down. But once we put that trailer together with the footage, all of a sudden donations were flying in. People were sharing it and all of this other stuff. And in 2019, I needed to put some of my own money, and I serendipitously got a credit card through PayPal. I like didn't even apply for it. That I remember all of a sudden it just showed up like, you've got this credit card for nearly $1,000. And so I, updated my computer, updated my software, bought Final Cut Pro, updated that, and then anything else that I needed. So I got studio monitors and pedestals for that. And I got a curved monitor and I got a bunch of other things to edit the film. And then that was a thing. And then Do I Qualify for Love only cost $28 that I borrowed from a friend to buy a ring light. And paid them back. And then Do I Qualify or Ordinary was just footage I had already got that I shot myself. And so I have been getting funding. Like I actually am not pushing my GoFundMe as much as I used to. Like I did it like the first 2 weeks and then I just kind of felt weird. And I thought like, I don't know. So I still have a GoFundMe out there.
Okay.
And I can give you the link to that if you want to put it for the podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I need to start promoting that again. And I'm also like doing the donations where people can go straight to the Beautiful Boi page on the Beautiful Boi website where it talks about the documentary and has a trailer and there's a donate button and you can click that. It'll go straight to my PayPal account. My whole thing is to cut out third parties. And so that's why I wasn't paying attention to GoFundMe anymore because I just like, there's like fees for that. Plus there's fees for this. And it's just like, one of these has got to go. And so I would cut these folks out. And then, I started realizing, like one of Prince's passions was emancipating himself. Like he has an album called Emancipation when he broke free from Warner Brother Records. And lately my food for artistic thought has been watching reels of him on Instagram talking about the record industry. And I remember when the Pixies first did their website, they didn't have a record company anymore and people were buying the music directly from the Pixies website. Prince picked up on that and then had 1-800 Funk website where we could buy his music directly and all kinds of really cool things that played off the New Power Generation store that used to be in Uptown. And so I was like, you know what, you're going to do this. And so what I decided to do this year is I'm going to be selling beautiful merchandise, Beautiful Boi merchandise. So t-shirts, stickers, candles that are going to be designed and made by Kobe Candle Company, which has just been taking off since 2020. And it's a Black femme owned candle company. And so I've been talking with Kobe's mom, Tasha, and they want me to pick out scents and create a limited edition scented candle specifically for Beautiful Boi. And then I'm also going to be making pins with Gigi from Minnesota Pens that are pins strictly limited edition for Beautiful Boi,
Yeah.
and then T-shirts, and then also I am going to be offering pre-orders of the feature for Beautiful Boi on my website within the next month or so. And
Nice.
so basically, I'm not just my own writer, director, producer, performer, subject. I'm also my own distributing company, and I have
Yeah.
LLC. I'm just like, just come get it off my website. Like, I don't like.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to have like a Fox Searchlight or to have like, Strand releasing, but I'm like, I can actually do this on my own, and I can
Yeah.
facilitate it off my own website, and then I can have Kobe send the candles, or Print send, like, there's a company called Print, and they can just send the T-shirts themselves,
Yeah.
and I don't have to worry about like wrapping things up and sending it. They'll take care of it
Yeah.
for me. I can even
Print
make
on demand.
it's on demand.
Yeah.
I can even make sneakers if I wanted to, and so
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
these are the things that I'll be offering, and they should all be up and running by Pride this year.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and so
Great timing.
I'm just putting it all together, and so that's how I'm going to be getting funding through that way too, and still through donations, and still through grants.
Yeah.
I, applied for some grants that I'll be hearing about in the next couple of months. I'm writing out one of the grants that I got May of last year, and then I'm going to start selling shares of my film to investors as well.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
just solidifying a budget, and I want to do all kinds of really cool things with Beautiful Boi. Like, I want to interview Peaches, I want to interview Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. I want to talk to people about love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's not like for me, my journey has been I've had a mental health journey from 2020 to today, and I actually graduated from DBT, trauma therapy, and regular talk therapy last year. Like, I graduated from dialectical behavioral therapy in 2021, and then I wrapped up trauma therapy and regular talk therapy within a week of each other at the end of August and beginning of September. And so, I've been on this journey of like, what does love mean and what does self-love mean? And it really happened with the fallout with me and my friend. And so it was just like going within and trying to figure out, like, how is my trauma showing up in relationships?
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to talk to people that write these amazing love songs, or that, are such thoroughbred maverick artists that they do their own thing on their own way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk more about that and talk more with them, and share that experience with the audience. And so it's like, I record on days that I'm having bad days, and I record on days I'm having good days, and all the days in between, because they're all connected to me, and like this overall personal shape of myself. And so it's like, Beautiful Boi is about my transition, starting at 50, and my mental health journey of the last nearly 40 years.
Wow.
So it's more than personal, it's DNA at this point.
Yeah. Wow. And so many people, I feel, will respond to it. They can maybe be able to see themselves in the work as well. And you're creating all this different product as well to help promote and also fund your work. Sounds so entrepreneurial.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want, I can read I got the gallery of some of the things that you said. Would you like to hear?
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah.
Okay. Here, this is actually from Paul, who is one of the co-founders for Off Leash and All Kilter. And he said, also, I don't think I ever told you, but I got nothing but wonderful comments about your contribution to Off Kilter. I think of all the great things people said about how artistically accomplished the editing and filming was your incredibly generous and humane approach to reading the script. Really great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was from Paul. And one of my favorite ones was from a dear friend. Here it is. My full is in all caps. My full honest opinion. OMFG. I love it, in a whole bunch of exclamation marks. Pros, visuals were astounding, along with timing with music and background, and what you were saying, and a whole bunch of exclamation marks. Excellent choice going with black and white. This makes the impact you wanted. Good money spent that I didn't understand originally. And then some of the cons were the voice, the sound of the speaking voice. Sounds like you have a bad sinus infection. I understand a lot of this has to do with hormones and voice changes. It sounds nasally. And so, but at the end of it, she says, they say, I'm so effing proud of you, Deuterella. And they say, this without a doubt deserves awards, not for the fact that it is special and seldom traveled journey. It's because it's that effing good.
Yes.
So
Yes.
stuff like that. And then I think another one, this one is funny because I mentioned something about underwear in Ordinary. I know you've seen that.
Yeah.
My friend actually sent me an image of a pair of underwear that says warning choking hazard on it.
Yeah.
I wrote, this was a masterpiece, very personal, insightful, and educational, especially for those who may be unfamiliar with anything in the LGBTQIA community. I could relate a lot to what you said, specifically to the biracial part. Very well done. And so that's one of like, I think it's something like 19 different messages that I got from people.
Yeah, people are responding to your work. And what great material for you to have too, as you're moving through this project and moving through your mental health journey as well, of just having something to go back to and to remind yourself from all of these voices and people who are supporting you in your project. Not every filmmaker has those kinds of resources, and it's so great that you have those all that positive feedback to keep you moving forward. Like, I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm wondering about if you do any mentorship. There's such a you have such an established background as a filmmaker, and do people ever come to you asking for advice about how to be a filmmaker or to be an artist? Yeah.
I just had a friend who's trans femme reach out to me last week and said, hey, Happy New Year. I really want to talk to you. Like, I want to make a documentary. Can I talk with you? And I was like, absolutely. And then I was supposed to teach a documentary class for the Boys and Girls Club last March, but this teacher strike and then everything with the pandemic, it kind of made it go away. And then I've been trying to teach a LGBTQIA screenwriting class and cinema queer history class, and we're trying it again. But like the classes, I've been told, people have been like, well, they're just, a lot of money and I can't really afford it. And so we're trying it again to see if we can try to launch it. But this time it will be a class that teaches people about queer cinema history as it's applicable to the screenplay that they're going to create in class, which is going to be like 3 to 8 pages. And we'll pick like 3 to 4 characters, and you can make them any archetype that you want, and we'll give them the same name, but everyone's screenplays will be drastically different from the other person because of what they want to bring to it. So maybe that'll happen. We haven't had any success for the last 2 years trying to make that happen, but we'll see what happens. And then I've also been invited to teach at Metro State a personal essay class that'll be focused around queer identities and that kind of thing. And that will probably happen after my bottom surgery in 2024. And so I'm in the process of putting together the curriculum for that. And then there's a whole process with Metro State to get into it. And so that's it. But, it's interesting. For my birthday, I decided to have a birthday party and trauma therapy graduation party, and I rented out the theater in Bryant Lake Bowl and had my friends come through, and there were like 10 of us, and so it was a costume party. So there was a Karen, there was 2 religious traumas, there was a woman with jogging with pearls, there was someone who was a gig economy, there was a scary cat, and so there were a bunch of different people that came. One came as depression, so it was great. And I'm standing here, I'm like, most of these folks are non-binary and trans. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a night like this that was open to the public? And that's what I'm creating, and it's called Translate. And so people are going to be able to come February 4th to Bryant Lake Bowl, and they can either watch the drag show from home online or at the theater, but we're going to have members from Transcendence Cabaret put on a show for a couple of hours.
Nice.
They have a free food bar that has tacos, I think a pizza, some salad and hummus and chip and pita. And we're going to offer that to folks that either haven't had a meal that day or for the past few days, and they're experiencing food insecurity. So that table is for them. And we're also going to turn it into a dance party, and we'll have neon bracelets for folks so they can like wear this. And I may actually show Ordinary and have another filmmaker show their film as well, so they can see queer cinema in the community.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. And so that'll be a bi-monthly event, and it starts February 4th. And I'm
Yay.
putting paperwork together for it.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
and that was kind of my way. And it's also a community fundraiser, so I'll be raising money for Tigers, which is a resource center for trans and gender diverse folks in the community in Minnesota. And then I also launched a grant for BIPOC, trans, masc, and non-binary folks for gender affirming services. So we'll be able to offer grants that cover electrolysis up to $1,000, and then needle packages for people that need access. So we'll be able to offer a needle package that will be good for 2 years. That includes like injectable needles, draw needles, syringes, Band-Aids, and alcohol swabs. And so we'll put that together. And I need to reach out to Stealth Brothers this week to see if they're willing to donate a couple of inexpensive DOP kits so people can put their stuff together in that.
Yeah.
And it was just stuff that I ran up against, when I switched gel form testosterone to the testosterone shots. And I was like, oh man, these needles, like you can buy them for $14, but who has $14 at this economy? Sure. And so I was like, if we can put together that. So that's kind of how I'm mentoring that way too.
Yeah.
And then I also have some extra equipment that I'll be gifting people in the community. It's just like, are you putting together a documentary? I have an extra onboard mic for your camera. You can just come pick it up, and just like giving away packer. I had a packer and I had some leftover Dapper Boy clothes, and I had a bunch of binders and stuff. And so I donated it to an individual. And we had to do it privately because they were living with a parent who didn't know that they were transitioning. And so I sent it to their friend's house in another city in the state. And so it was just that kind of thing. And then just trying to offer a place that's, like Translate is a cabaret and a dance party, and it's a wellness event. And it's being sponsored by the Minnesota Transgender Health Coalition, the Minnesota Department of Health, and Rare Productions, which is co-founded by Roxanne Anderson, who's also been an executive producer for several of my films, including Beautiful Boi. And so,
cool.
So it's going to be a lot. Yes.
Yeah. Translate sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll have to make sure we have the link. I'll go and check it out too on Bryant Lake Bowl's calendar. Moonplay has been fortunate to work with Bryant Lake Bowl too. And I just love them so much. So I'm excited.
Kristen's amazing.
Yeah. Kristen is amazing.
Yes. Yes. And it's not up on their website yet, but when it is, I'll email you all the
please.
Stuff.
Yeah. And I'll make sure we'll help support and promote that. That's really cool.
Thank you. I'm so like blessed to have people that want to offer guidance and also want to promote my work and have people come through. Like the way that the GoFundMe blew up over Little Men will always blow my mind. And so I just am so thankful for everyone that's in my life that have been supportive. I'm still thankful for my best friend too, even though we broke up, because I was able to discover a lot of things about myself, and that breakup was what prompted the movie Beautiful Boi, because it was supposed to be like a private journal that I would send to them someday. And I was like, you know what? Why don't you just make a movie, and then you can share it with the masses? And that was the impetus of Beautiful Boi, besides not having something like Beautiful Boi out already. And so that was kind of it. And like that relationship is also the inspiration for the personal journals that I've made between Do I Qualify for Love and Ordinary. And so it's just like, relationships, like we're all connected and we never really leave each other. And, even like relationships that were challenging or just straight up awful, there's lessons that I've learned from all of that stuff. And it's, part of what goes into the making of Beautiful Boi and Ordinary. And it's also part of the narrative of Beautiful Boi. It's just like, I have this relationship and this is what I've learned in the loss of it. And what I learned most is like how to love myself unconditionally, and how to share that love with everyone else, whether we're strangers, passing each other, or people that are really close to me in my life. And that's kind of like my whole journey as a human being is, like learning about love. Like I recently just finished Plato's Symposium, and I want to actually make a staged play of that. And I also thought about Peter Greenaway. He's one of my favorite filmmakers.
Mm.
He's done Prospero's books and The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover.
Mm.
And he's an amazing filmmaker. I can't even describe his work. You just have to see it.
Okay.
And if I was going to do symposium, I would do it as an homage to Peter Greenaway and his layers of the layers that he brings to every single shot of his films.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it's just, they're slow moving films, but they're deeply impactful and you'll never forget them after you see them.
Wow. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look up Mr. Peter Greenaway. Is that what you're
Peter
saying?
Greenaway, just like it
Yeah.
sounds.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, definitely. I always appreciate when I hear of a filmmaker to check out. Well, I want people to check out Atlas Phoenix.
I want people to check out Atlas Phoenix too. Yes, if you haven't had the Atlas Phoenix experience, go to beautifulboi.com.
Yes. Yes. Anything else you want to share about just, where you're at right now, or where to from here? What's going on with you?
Where to from here is all the stuff I just talked about with the merchandise and the pre-orders of the film. Last Pride, I dressed up as a phoenix and put together rainbow roses with stems, and then I hand wrote all the little tags that went on it. I actually have one right here somewhere. I have one, but it was like a rose that I put together, and I wrote these tags, these gift tags, and I said pride is for everyone, and then each card had an affirmation. And so I handed out those roses before the Pride Parade kicked off last year, and I didn't think anybody would want them, and they were gone in 10 minutes between me and my friend. My friend was on the other side of the street and I was on this side. People and my favorite thing was watching like adults. Like there was one person that I remember, she reached out her hand and then she pulled it away. And I saw, I was like, do you want a rose? She's like, yes. And I was like, they're for roses.
Yes.
And so I wrote a grant proposal and I said, I want to give out 1,000 roses at Pride. And I got even bigger wings, which are over here. So
wow.
like
Yes.
my 4-foot span.
Nice.
And so I will be wearing my Phoenix wings and platforms and giving them out again during Pride. And taking pictures with people. People were really respectful and asking to take pictures and stuff. I actually bumped into my old landlord, and I had the Phoenix mask and everything. And so, like I look forward to doing that in June. And then in July, I'm going to England, in Amsterdam, and possibly Germany. And that's it. I'm waiting to hear about the biggest grant that I will have ever received. I'll hear about it in about 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And that will change my life. It will allow me to move. It will allow me to move to a quieter place where I can edit and quiet. I have a lot of traffic. So like I had to put up a blanket and everything to block out the sound because I have a rig here where I record my journals every day. And so that's kind of it, like to do more recording and to put together, start putting together the web series from the Beautiful Boi footage that I have, and then use that as a vehicle to get people interested in the feature film when it comes out. And I'll be offering the film for streaming on my website. You can purchase physical copies, and then you'll also be able to hire me to come out to a theater. That original four-walling that John Waters used to do before he became famous John Waters. He used to four-wall all of his films, which means he would take his films, the reels, and actually go physically to the theaters around the country and have the show that night and have people come in. And so people can hire me to come in. Film, and then they can ask me questions and I can take pictures and do whatever. And so that's kind of the future that I see for the next 2 years. Wrapping up Beautiful Boi and touring it around the world on foot and through the website.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Well, let me know how I can support.
Sure.
Whether it be this podcast episode or however we can stay connected, because I really love your work, and I'm really excited that we are connected in this way. It means a lot to me, not only as an artist, but someone who loves filmmakers and wants to make sure that stories like yours and the work that you create, that people see it and appreciate it, and also can, if they see themselves in the work, or it can support them in some way. And I feel like there's so much potential and strength in that. So thank you for what you bring to the film community. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you. That's an honor to hear that. Thanks so much.
I think it's really exciting.
Thank you. The other place people can catch me on is Genderful. That's a podcast and
Mm,
YouTube stream, and I co-host that with Gender Meowster.
okay.
And you can go to genderfulpodcast.com. I believe it's either genderfulpod or genderfulpodcast.com,
Okay.
and find our episodes on there. And like I said, I was interviewed last June when I had COVID, actually, and I dressed up as a phoenix. Was
Hmm.
interviewed, and a few weeks later, Gender asked me if I wanted to co-host, and we've been co-hosting since about September of last year.
Wow.
We have a show tomorrow, actually, that we're co-hosting, and we stream live on Twitch, and it goes to YouTube, it goes to Spotify as a podcast,
Yeah.
and so we have both the video from Zoom. We do it on Zoom,
Yeah.
and we interview people from all over the world that are gender diverse.
Hmm.
And
Very cool. Ah,
one of the people I got to interview, my first interview, which was a solo interview, was Aiden Dowling. And Aiden is very prominent in the trans mass community and transgender community. He has a Trace app where it's like a social media app for trans folks, gender diverse folks. And then also his company, Point of Pride, his foundation, Point of Pride, where they give grants and stuff. And I took a hint from there and decided to make my grant, which is called the Phoenix Ascension Grant. And so that's kind of like in the process of becoming. And so we're going to have applications for folks ready in the spring, and then we'll do a randomized drawing in the summer, hopefully by Pride, and then be able to give people money for like electrolysis needles, all that kind of stuff.
so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So lots of things to pay attention to and follow and stay in the know so people can access these kinds of resources and the work that you're creating. So thanks for being on the podcast, Atlas. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so much for
it.
having me. This is
Yeah.
such an honor, and I love spending this time with you. And thank you. Like I wasn't sure what to make of when I submitted. Like I sent you something on Instagram, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I may not have heard from this person or whatever. That's fine. And then now we're here today, so this is
Yeah.
great. And so
Yeah.
thank you very much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, that was Atlas Phoenix. So excited to have had that time with Atlas to talk about so many different aspects of their practice, their career as a filmmaker, their path in transitioning genders. I am just so excited to know Atlas, and like I had mentioned, I'm a newbie to Atlas, and just so appreciate that they reached out, and now I feel like I know them. That's the lovely thing about doing conversations like this on the podcast. The conversation ends, but the connection remains. If you have a project that you want to talk about, that you want people to know about, reach out. Email me at moonplaycinema@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram. So if you head over to Instagram, just we're Moonplay Cinema, direct message us. It'll be me that you'll reach out to, and we can talk further. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will have another episode soon. Take care. Bye.